So, today we're going to walk through the steps to complete our Excel charts and graphs class. The first thing to do is make sure that you've already downloaded the Excel charts and graphs student file. Within this, we'll find a lot of information about our Smart Cookie Bakery employees, their sales, and the total revenue they've brought in. The first chart that we're going to create is a pie chart. To do this, we're going to select cells L2 to M10. This is our regions and total units sold. We're going to list this information in a pie chart and make it really easy to see. Even though we know we're creating a pie chart, we're going to get started by selecting recommended charts to see how this can be different based on the information you've selected. So first I'm going to select recommended charts, and here I'll see these are the different selections Excel is recommending. If perhaps I want to see what else there is, I can go to all charts. Within here, if there is a chart that does not work with the information we have, such as some of these, it'll simply let me know it's not an option. Let's suppose from the recommended charts, I really like the pie chart idea. I want to see what other options there are in that family. I'm going to click on all charts, and from in here, choose the 3D pie option. Here you'll see Excel gives it some shadows and a little bit of an angle for a three-dimensional effect. With that selected, I'm going to say OK. The chart is automatically inserted onto the same workbook page or sheet that I started with. If I'd like to move this information and put it on its own tab, I can use from the Design tab the Move Chart tool. Within Move Chart, I'll let Excel know I'd like to put it on a new sheet, and I'm going to call this one Pie. And go ahead and say OK. Now, another thing to notice is while we are editing our chart, I have access to chart tools. This is design and format. You can think of design as a bit more of the template features, things where the design elements have been pre-established and they're really good to use out of the box. If I need to do something a little more unique, I want more control, format has more of the do-it-yourself tools where we can really choose exactly what we need. First thing I'm going to do in the Design tab is update the colors. We'll assume for today's example that my Smart Cookie Bakery company has a specific color scheme. So instead of having this somewhat rainbow look, I'm going to go to Change Colors and choose one of the monochromatic options. For today, I'm going to go with yellow. Now I can see up here that there are different chart styles. For today's example, we're going to be doing things a bit more from scratch in the format section, but these can be a great way to get some inspiration. Once you've chosen a monochromatic color, you'll see that Excel will update your file. So in this case, we go from a darker yellow over to the lightest. It's helpful in this case if you want a specific color, but you don't want to have to choose every single shade. So first, we're going to take this total units sold and select it. You'll see it's a text box, meaning we can click and with our four-way arrow, we can click, hold, and drag to move it around. There we go. For this, I'm going to add a little bit of text. So I'm going to leave total units sold, click at the end of that word sold, press space, and add by region. In addition, I'm going to add a little bit of design to that text. So selecting the words, I'm going to go up to Format and choose a word art style. So word art applies multiple changes in formatting to text. This can be shadows, a glow effect, making something look three-dimensional. It could be having an outline color and an inside color. So really up to you. So suppose I choose this. It's pretty hard to read. What if I were to change the color? Is that any better? I think so. All right, so I'll leave that for now. And I think I also might make this a little bit larger using the font tool, just to be really easy to read. Next, we can see we've got our pie chart and we have our labels. Now, at the bottom, with the monochromatic color, it becomes really difficult to read. You can see they're all showing the color of yellow or the shade of yellow that they are, but it becomes pretty difficult suddenly to tell the difference between the Rocky Mountain yellow and the Southeast yellow, for example. So we're going to add in data labels. By selecting anywhere on the chart, I'm going to activate these three boxes. Select the plus sign and check off data labels. This is going to put labels on the pie chart itself and allow us to edit them a bit more. So these numbers are coming from our original selected information. This is the actual amount that each region sold in that year. To make some changes, I'm going to select any one of these. Once you click on one, you'll notice that they are all highlighted. We've selected our data labels. This brings us over here in our formatting pane to label options. From within here, we're going to select the fourth option. It looks like a bar chart. And the very first drop-down, label options. Here we can choose exactly what information Excel includes in the label. So here we are going to check off percentage. This will allow Excel to do the math and find out what percent of the total sales by region each region is responsible for. With that, we no longer need the value. So I'm going to uncheck value. And I'm going to include category name. One thing that we'll leave is show leader lines. These may or may not appear as we continue to edit. For an example of what that means, if I was to stretch this out, this line that connects, for example, Great Lakes to where it is on the chart is a leader line. Leader lines are really helpful if you have some very narrow parts of your chart and it would otherwise be difficult to have the label on it, or you have parts that simply just don't quite fit. All right, so we've got our pieces here, which means that we also no longer need this section down here. We can choose under the plus sign to uncheck legend, and it'll disappear. Or you can use your delete key to remove it manually. Once we've gotten that section organized, I'd like to change some of these labels to make sure that no matter what the background color is, they're all very simple and easy to read. Once again, I'm going to click any one and it'll highlight all of them. And then under label options, where we see our paint bucket, I'm going to choose fill, solid fill, and then I'll go with white, knowing that the text is already black. It'll be very easy to read. You can choose whatever you'd like. Once you have this ready, let's say that we wanted to specifically highlight the sales in the Great Lakes. That was of particular interest. We can do a few things to highlight this section specifically. First, I'm going to rotate this pie chart so that Great Lakes appears sort of in the middle at the bottom. To do that, while it's selected, I'm going to go over to the Format Plot Area option, and where it says Plot Area Options, choose that drop-down. Here, we want Plot Area, and then we're going to select this pentagon shape and 3D rotation. You'll see that your Y rotation already has a 30% in there. That's what's giving us this three-dimensional look. For example, if I was to change that, it's going to change the three-dimensional aspect of our pie chart. The X rotation is where we can move the pie around. So here, if I click through, and I'd say at about 110, Great Lakes appears to be nicely in the center. Next, if I want to pull this out, I can use the 3D explosion tool. Notice when I click once on anywhere in the pie chart, these little blue dots appear. Depending on the color you've chosen for your pie chart, they may be a little harder to see. The blue dots let us know that the pie itself has been selected. So clicking a second time We'll select only that particular slice. With this selected, I'm going to choose over here the series options tool where it says point of explosion. I'm going to click out, and I think maybe 10% creates just enough. And I'm also going to change the color to something that really contrasts. So here, using the paint bucket tool, I'm going to change the color from my palette. So maybe I'll do something bright blue. All right. With this all done, we have created a pie chart that is colorful, has the information we need, and really focuses in on a specific piece that we need more information on. Next, we're going to create the clustered columns chart. From our Sales by Employee tab, we're going to use the Flash Fill tool to update our information in last name and first name. This way, they'll all be in one cell, making it a bit easier for us to follow. To do this, I'm going to right click on the letter A, choose Insert, and because we selected the entire column, it's automatically going to insert a new column to our left. I'll name this one Employee, press Enter, and begin typing my information. When it comes to Flash Fill, as a reminder, we always want to make sure that spelling is correct. If we begin to spell something incorrectly, it'll pick that up in the pattern. So here, Excel has figured out the Flash Fill pattern. I can press Enter, and the rest are done. As a reminder, if you need to do this manually for any reason, you can do so in the Fill tool, Flash Fill. Now we also want to highlight a few pieces of information for this chart. We're going to highlight from A1 down to A33. Using our Control key, keeping Control pressed down, we're going to select I1 to I33. Still pressing Control, we'll select L1 to L33. The Control key allows us to highlight cells that are not otherwise next to each other. With these three selected, we're going to go over to Insert, Recommended Charts, and see what Excel has suggested. So here you'll see very different options, no pie charts, all based on what we selected. We are going to choose Clustered Column and say OK. Just like before, it's going to automatically put this onto the sheet we were working with. And again, we're going to move this to a new location. While it's selected, from the Design tab, choose Move Chart Location. This time we'll say New Sheet, Bar. We're going to change the chart title to something a little bit more specific. So I'm doing a triple click there that highlights everything in the same line, and we will call this Sales by Employee. Click outside of it to save that information. Next, we're going to use one of the pre-made design tools. In the Chart Styles group, which is within the Design tab, we're going to use one of the pre-made chart styles. As I'm hovering through, I might find that there are elements I like that are included in some but not others, and we'll go over how we can combine a preset template with some individually chosen ideas. So suppose I really like the look of style 8, but I also really liked how a few of them had the numbers up at the top above each of the different columns. I'm able to coordinate that so it shows that information. Also of note at the bottom, you'll see here we have each individual employee, their first and last name, because we already took the time to merge both with Flash Fill. Add those numbers in, we're going to go over from the Design tool, Chart Layout, to Add Chart Elements. Here we'll say Data Labels, and that we would like them to be outside end. In this case, it has the information we need, but unfortunately, it's very difficult to read with all the information layered on top of each other. In order to convert this from horizontal to vertical, I'm going to select any line of text, keeping in mind that even if it looks like some cells are not selected, if they are part of that same group, they'll all move at the same time. So from Format, we'll move over to Format, and in the current selection group, choose the drop-down. This is another way to move where we find ourselves in our Format pane over here. In this section, we are going to choose, within this section, we're going to first select some of the grand total revenue. Then, from the Format tab, in the current selection group, choose Format Selection. This will update our format data labels to show us the correct tools for adjusting these. Now, here you'll see the label options that we worked with in the pie chart, but this time we're going to go to text options because we want to adjust how the text specifically appears. This third option is where we can change the alignment from horizontal to vertical. Text direction, let's choose rotate all 90 degrees. If you find it easier to read the numbers in reverse, we would rotate all text 270 degrees. Either way, once you've done that, go ahead and click any of the numbers from the revenue section. And we're going to select text direction, same. And now we've got a very nice looking clustered column. Suppose we also wanted to highlight the specific sales of an employee. I wanted to really call out what looks like Scott Summers is our top seller. Similar to how we selected a unique slice of our pie chart, we can select one and then click a second time, twice, on an individual's line within the clustered columns. Now I can choose to have this its own color. I'll choose solid fill, and then under color, something unique. We'll also do this for Scott's sales on the lower half. Again, clicking twice, not a double click, but two individual clicks, and then going to the fill tool, color, and choosing a different color. Now that those stand out, we can begin to get this ready for printing. Let's suppose I'd like to print both of these on the same page and make sure they looked really nice together. Well, first I'm going to create a new worksheet. That's by pressing the plus sign at the bottom here and updating sheet 1 to print, pressing enter to save that name in. First, I'm going to go over to the pie chart, select it, and then choose the copy tool. Bringing my cursor back down to print. With A1 already selected, I know it's going to be placed in the right spot, and I can click on print. Ideally, because we have a lot of formatting, I want to just select the print clipboard and not any of the other more specific options. Now I want to make sure that my clustered columns appears just below. So I'm going to first click in a spot below where my pie chart is. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom, find that bar chart or clustered column that we labeled. Click anywhere towards the top. I just want to make sure that the entire feature is selected. And we will once again choose copy, go back down to print, and select paste. So now I've got both items in the same place. If I was to print them right now, you'd see that first, it's only showing me my clustered columns. This is a common mistake. If you forget to deselect or click outside of whatever object you have selected, Excel is going to first assume that you only want to print that. So if I've gone back in, clicked outside, went File, Print, I can see that in fact, this would print as 4 different pages. In order to get everything onto one page, I'm going to make a few changes in the page layout section. So to do this, I'm going to go to Page Setup and click on the dialog box to the right. Now, these two items are stacked on top of each other, so portrait certainly works. I'm also going to change the fit to say that I want everything to fit on one page by one page. In margins, we can tell Excel that we would like our information centered. Header and footer is where we would be able to add some information. If I choose a custom header, I can have it say name, Excel class, and perhaps the file name. I can use that by selecting this icon that looks like a little Excel. And then I'm going to say over in Sheets that I would like the grid lines, and I don't need anything else. So I'll say print preview. And from here, I have a much better view. Everything has automatically been zoomed out so that it fits nicely within my single page. And I can see everything ready to go just as we created it. Thank you.